Welcome back to Sports Talk is McKinney. We're going to talk some NFC football, and what a crazy week of football. Of course, we've already talked about the AFC. The NFC on Sunday had a couple crazy games. First, let's start Minnesota and battling against the Seattle Seahawks in a crazy game that went down to the wire. The Seattle Seahawks advanced with a missed field goal with 22 seconds left that just broke the heart of Minnesota Vikings fans.
The one thing comes to mind, Dave, when I think of that game. Ace Ventura, pet detective, Ray Finkel, laces out. And, there was a 47-yard kick that Blair Walsh nailed earlier when the laces were facing him. That time on the prior kick, there was some pressure from the kicker's right side. It looked like about an inch from getting blocked. And the run right before that, Peterson almost got the first down, but switched hashes to where the kick was going to be from the left hash rather than the right. And I got to wonder if in the back of the kicker's mind, he didn't anticipate the pressure coming from the right and just hook it. But, man, it was not even close. And, I have a student named Justin Little, and his heart, I knew immediately his heart was broken. He got a buddy named Craig Jones over in the Delta. I knew his heart is breaking. What a tough moment.
Well, Mike, Blair Walsh, before that kick, was 33 of 34 in his career in kicks inside 30 yards. And honestly, when the kick went off, it looked like sometimes my pitching wedge can look, just hook, straight left, and just a terrible, in what was not a very exciting game to watch. It was cold in Minnesota.
Third coldest in history, -6 at kickoff.
I mean, there was no offense at all. It was 10-9, and the Vikings battled down, and it was a heartbreaking defeat. The Seattle Seahawks, though, managed to stay alive, and for one day, their defense...
Just for one day.
For one day, their defense looked dominating and looked like their old selves of previous years.
Right, and the game, as you said, it was pretty boring, but it sure livened up there in the fourth quarter. That was a pretty exciting quarter. Of course, two plays I think stand out from that game besides that kick. Really three. Of course, Peterson's fumble. That was untimely, as all turnovers are. But the bad snap that Russell Wilson didn't panic, didn't fall on the ball at midfield and lose what would have been close to 18 yards. Just calmly picked it up, found an open man, set up the touchdown. And then when he was wrapped up on a play, there are 30 other quarterbacks in the league where the defensive end is bearing down on you like that, and you're down. You're done. Russell Wilson had enough fear that he put in the defensive end that he was going to miss the tackle and run for another 20 yards outside, that he slowed down, tackled the legs. Wilson throws the ball out of bounds. Drive continues. Field goal, 10-9 Seattle. Missed field goal by the Vikings. And, of course, Seattle goes on. And then that late game looked like Washington early with that momentum, that safety. And then, second quarter on is all Aaron Rodgers and the Packers.
Well, Mike, and I will say, earlier this week, we talked about Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, how their offenses struggled. But I got to say, the Pack, at least for one game, was back last week. Aaron Rodgers looked like his old MVP self, and their offense was really rolling. And that's going to set up some interesting matchups as we go into this week, Mike.
Oh, yeah. It's going to set up some really interesting matchups, Dave. As we, let's look at those. Let's start with the NFC. Seattle's going to be going into Carolina. Russell Wilson is now 7-2 as a playoff quarterback in his short career. Of the 2 losses, the total point differential is 6, Dave. And 4 of that came last year in a game that really we expected, it was a freak loss, that Seattle lost that game.
Well, Mike, in that game, Seattle and Carolina, I'm going to probably go ahead and go with Carolina this week because I feel that Cam Newton is just on a mission this year. And despite the Seattle defense playing great yesterday, I mean, they gave up like 180 yards on 60 plays. They averaged 3.3 yards per play is all that the Vikings averaged. They held Adrian Peterson to 45 yards on 23 carries, but I just think right now the Carolina Panthers are on a mission, and I think they have a chance to knock Seattle Seahawks to keep them from making it to that 3rd straight Super Bowl.
Well, I got to go the other way, Dave. I think the Seahawks they're used to being in these close games. They're seasoned. I hope that I would like to see Cam Newton and the Panthers avenge last year's playoff loss at Seattle. They got them at home this time, but it's just too hard to pick anybody but Russell Wilson. And then the other game, I've got Green Bay, and so I've got Seattle at Green Bay, the 6 and the 5, playing for the NFC Championship. And, even though Aaron Rodgers has only won 3 of his last 7 playoff starts, I see him having the advantage against Arizona team that doesn't have a lot of playoff advantage. Experience.
And I'm going to go the other way. I'm actually going to go with the Packers this weekend. I just feel that Green Bay has just been so inconsistent. Of course, they were playing Washington last week, who finished the season at 9-7. I think Arizona has a potent offense. Green Bay struggles with their cornerbacks, and they struggle against the passing game. And Carson Palmer, if he can eliminate his turnovers, which over the course of his career he has had a lot of turnover issues, but I think Arizona is actually going to get past the Packers on this one. So I'm actually going opposite that one, Mike.
Well, I hope it turns out the way that you chose, Dave. That's going to be the way that I'm rooting. So you have Arizona at Carolina, and I have Green Bay hosting Seattle. Right. So in the AFC, the way I have it ending up is I see the Chiefs going to Denver in the championship game. And, a couple things, I want to look at the Kansas City game first. First, Tom Brady. 21-8. The guy's played almost 30. This will be his 30th playoff game. He's won over 70% of his playoff games. It's amazing. He's 4-2 as a quarterback. If it wasn't for Eli Manning, this guy might have 6 Super Bowls.
Well, and I think Brady, Brady's going to be hard to beat in the playoffs. He's a different kind of player. But, the Patriots do just seem to be struggling a little bit right now. But to me, the Patriots, when playoff time starts, they're a completely different game. Even though Kansas City is coming in on a roll, to me, they're still inexperienced, and Brian Hoyer with the Texans pretty much just gave them the game last week. I'm actually going to go with Tom Brady in that one.
I think Kansas City, even though all I said just there about Brady, it's hard to find a weakness on this team. Of all the teams left, they are the most united as a team that I see, and I just can't pick against them. They're the most cohesive unit in the playoffs. And Smith is 2-2 in the playoffs. That's not too shabby. You got to start somewhere. So I'm gonna go with Kansas City. Then of course, I know we're going to clash on this one. I have the Broncos. I would pick the Steelers for sure. If Roethlisberger is 100%, then you got a guy who has 2 Super Bowl titles, and he's 11-5 in the playoffs. But I think Manning will be the game manager when he comes back. That Broncos defense is so tough, and even though Manning has a losing record going up against Roethlisberger with a record of almost 700 in the playoffs, I'm going to go with the home team. So I'm going to have the Broncos hosting Kansas City.
Well, and honestly, in that one, it's a battle of 2 teams that are basically mass units right now. You got the Pittsburgh Steelers with Ben Roethlisberger that is just beat up. He might be out. Antonio Brown might be out. It's going to be a battle between the 2 mass units. And, of course, I got to go with the Steelers on that one. But, Peyton Manning, I'm sure would love an opportunity to, with all the craziness of this season, to end up getting to play in the Super Bowl after all the stuff that he's gone through with the PEDs and the injuries. I mean, I think if he makes a Super Bowl, he probably walks away from the game.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dave. I mean, there's already talk about that now. It would have to be, exit stage left, and what an exit it would be. I think that there could be any combination of teams. I don't know who's going to win any of the games. And, to me, this is one of the most exciting NFL playoff seasons in recent memory because there is no clear favorite.
It's wide open. You don't have that dominant team that's just running away with it. So, we'll be back in a little bit. We're going to do a recap of the NCAA championship game when we come back here on Sports Talk is McKinney. We'll be back in just a minute.